Is it a little weird being on your dad's podcast?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just listened to a couple of them, but I never thought I was going to be on it this soon, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you did something kind of interesting in your life, so
Yeah.
like to interview people that do interesting stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That
What?
life experience.
You're 16 years old,
Mm-hmm.
and you already did something that most people never get a chance to do in their life.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm lucky. That's
Yeah.
for sure. Yep.
So growing up, we did quite a bit of like smaller hunting. What's your first memory of hunting in general?
My first one was I can't remember if this is the first or the second. I think it's the first one. We were on a 4-wheeler and we were just driving. And I think it was more of us going on a 4-wheeler ride than hunting because I had camo on, the bow was sitting there on the 4-wheeler, but we were just kind of driving around and then we hiked a little bit. But that was my first memory, and we stopped and had some Mountain House mac and cheese, and kind of just went on a 4-wheeler ride. I'm pretty sure now, thinking back on it, I always thought it was hunting forever, but now that I kind of think back on it, I think it was just a fun time that's on the 4-wheeler.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Do you remember the elk hunt we did out of the blind?
That's the other one where...
That was definitely first.
Yeah, that was first where I remember we went there. Todd Green brought us out there, gave us a blind, and we set up our spot, and we went out there. And
You were 5 years old.
Yeah.
I think you were 4.
4?
I think you were 4 years old. I have to look that up.
Well, I remember it clear as day. We got there. You told me it was going to be a while for the elk before the elk would show up. So I laid down on the ground and fell asleep. And I don't know how long, probably a couple hours later, 2 hours later, you woke me up, showed me some deer, and then probably 10, 15 minutes later, you could hear the elk coming behind us. And I remember that cow elk came walking by. And I'm pretty sure, because I remember you were saying that Todd was like, don't shoot the first one because it's going to be a cow. But I was like, you got to shoot the first one. And so that cow came walking up and we shot it and it ran off and the elk just kept coming. And I remember the elk rubbing against the blind and just sitting there watching them. There was a nice bull we watched for a while, but that was super fun.
I was... we sat in that blind and you could hear the elk from way, way off, and then they just kept getting closer and closer, but we couldn't see them.
Yeah.
Because they were coming from kind of the hillside behind us. And sure enough, those elk, like the first cow that jumped the fence was 20 yards from our blind, 25 yards. And Hank was sitting there, and I remember you going, shoot it.
Yeah.
Shoot it.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I can't let this opportunity get by. So, yeah, I shot her with my bow, and she kind of ran around in front of us, just kind of like quartered through the field and then back off across the ditch, kind of where they came from and out of our sight.
Yeah. Yeah, because we had to go back the next day, and we were looking for her, right? And the rancher up above us was dragging a cow, and we...
Your cow.
Our cow?
Yeah, ours that we shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, because what happened is after I shot that cow, like you said, the elk just kept coming.
Mm-hmm.
They had no idea what happened.
Yeah.
And so we had tons of elk right around us, and so much so that, like you said, there was cow elk behind our blind rubbing against our blind between us and the fence, walking around our blind. And I'll try to pull up that footage and have Henry put it over this, but there were like cows talking like 5 feet from our blind, which was super cool.
Yeah, it was wild.
So we didn't want to get out of our blind and scare off that herd because it was really actually not our hunting spot. It was Todd's. Mm-hmm. And so we just sat the rest of the night, and those elk never made it down towards Todd's blind. It was cool because Todd could actually see it from his blind. He watched the whole thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because he was probably, how far away was he? I don't remember.
200 yards.
Was he?
Yeah, 200 or 300 yards down the field. But he had a view. His blind was looking back towards ours. In fact, he could see all the elk coming the whole time.
Oh.
And we couldn't.
Yeah. Because we didn't see him till the cow popped its head out
Yeah.
right to the right of us or whatever.
Yep. And so then we just kind of snuck out of our blind and went home. And then we came back the next morning, and that cow had actually gone across that irrigation ditch behind us and kind of up and over the hill, but it was on a different piece of property.
Yeah.
So we had to call the landowner. He came down, and he just followed the blood trail literally out of his pickup windshield. He could see it. Mm-hmm. He just followed it in his pickup up on top of the hill and hooked onto it and drug it back down to us.
Yeah. Yeah. That was cool.
That was pretty cool. What do you remember about your first hunts as a kid where like you hunted or actually shot something?
We were going out east we were in Lincoln, just outside Lincoln on, whose ranch was it? Your buddy's ranch.
Yep.
Yeah.
Actually just over the pass on Ingersoll's.
Yeah. And we went with another friend of ours who actually spotted the buck, and his daughter was with him, but they called us, and it was my first time hunting, so they were like, well, we want him to shoot this, which was super nice. They called us, so we got in the truck.
You were 10.
Yeah, and we ran over there, and we got out, and we probably parked, 20, 30 yards from where I shot?
That was probably 100 yards, but
it
it wasn't far, yeah.
Yeah, because I remember we were sneaking up, super quiet. We were trying to find out where he was at. We could never see him. And you asked for your binos, and I was looking right in front of us, and there was a bunch of like trees and brush and stuff.
Aspen trees,
yeah. And I saw something pick its head up, and I was like, I think he's right there.
Yeah.
And you looked, and sure enough, he was standing right there, just staring right at us. And I get my gun up, and I'm shooting offhand, and I think probably because I was shooting frogs as a kid, I kind of got on the scope, and he was just right there. And I can't remember, were you holding the end of the gun or?
I helped you hold the weight. It was the 7mm, right?
I think it was the 243.
Oh, 243.
Yeah, yeah, and
so I was helping hold a little bit of the weight of the barrel, but you were standing there offhand.
Yeah,
and the deer was facing us.
Yeah, and he picked his head up and was just staring at us, and I shoot, and we couldn't tell. He kind of ran off. We saw him run, and we couldn't really tell if I hit him or not. And we were kind of sitting there waiting. And the friends that were with us, they kind of went around and were gonna go look for it, kind of just because he ran off into these trees.
They went up. They were gonna go up high.
Yeah,
and we asked him because he saw the deer kind of run across the field, and I was like, how did it look? And he was like, I don't think he hit it.
Yeah.
He was like, he looked fine.
Yeah.
But we knew exactly where it went into the brush.
Mm-hmm.
And then they were like, well, we'll go up high and try to look down and see if we see anything.
Yeah. And so we went and sat kind of just next to this creek or river or whatever. And we were sitting there, and then we started to sneak up, and we keep walking up. And then Demi, I'm pretty sure, is the one that found it.
Well, it was right where we thought it went in the brush.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And it was just laying there, and that was my first. It was a little whitetail buck.
It was a perfect shot right in the chest. He just ran like crazy and died where we thought where he went in the brush. He actually just piled up right there.
Yeah.
Never even made it into the brush.
Yep.
So that was your first buck. And then we did some mule deer hunts out east.
Yep. Shot a buck every year after that, basically, over out east. We had a family trip every year, and
we'd camp in the camper.
Yep, me, Demi, and Sadie, and then Macy got to go the last 2 years. And
tell everybody about getting cut.
Oh, so I think this was my third buck or something like that. I was 12, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we made this like pack in there, and we shot Sadie's buck, and it was
probably 2 miles in.
Yeah, and we were way back in there, gutted it out, packed it up, and we were making our pack out, and we're probably half mile from the truck.
Yeah,
and we're just sitting there, and I'm like, Dad, we should rattle.
And I was like,
yeah.
I mean, you don't generally rattle from mule deer.
Yeah.
But I was like, whatever, make the kids happy, have fun.
So we get out the rattle, he rattles, and I must have just like made the buck just kind of wonder what that is, and kind of just stood up, and you could see him right on the kind of skylined him, and I was like, oh, there's a buck, and I shot, and he took
what, 250 yards?
Yeah, I think it was about 250. Yeah, and I shot, and I don't know, did I hit him the first time?
Yeah,
because I shot twice.
Yeah, you just did a follow up, but yeah,
because I shot, I hit him, and he went running to the left, and I got on him again and shot, and then he dumped like right when I shot him the second time, right? Yeah, and so we hiked back. Did we go all the way to the truck, or did we?
We did. We took Sadie's deer to the truck.
Yeah, so we went to the truck.
Because we had that all packed in our backpacks.
Yeah, we went to the truck, and it's funny. I remember this clear as day. I was like, well, at least no one got hurt. And Demi's like, well, you can't say that yet. We still have to do your deer.
Yeah.
So we start walking out, and out there, it's like all these fingers that go out, and it's like hard to tell where you're at.
And the Missouri River breaks.
Yeah, and we walked out on one, and we found out we were about 2 ridges over, like too far. So then we had to drop down in this super thick stuff, came out, dropped back down, and then got on the right ridge, went walking around, and he was laying right there. We gutted him out. We cut him in half, right, to drag him out?
We did.
Yeah, and we cut him in half, and then I think you took the back half, and we took the antlers, and me and Demi drug out the...
Yeah, you and your sisters drug the front half out. I drug the back half out.
Yeah, and we got all the way back, and it was just before dark. Like, the sun was it was a nice sunset, it was dark. And the legs were kind of giving us fits trying to get him to the topper. So my dad's like, well, just hold the leg here, and I'm going to cut the leg off real quick. And he starts cutting around, and then he like cuts, slips off, and just whacks my hand. And it felt like I just got like...
Show that camera up kind of in front of your microphone here.
Right here.
Look at that scar.
Yeah. And it like smacks my hand. And at first, like when you get hit like that, it doesn't feel like a cut or a slice. And I thought your hand or something just like punched my hand.
And I was instantly like, oh my gosh, let me see that.
Yeah. And I look, and there's just blood gushing out. And I'm like, oh, nice. And you have Demi or someone go up and try and get the first aid kit. You're getting out tape, and we're trying to get it to stop the bleeding. And we get some, was it like gauze, or was it like a t-shirt or something?
Gauze. Yeah.
And we got electrical tape and taped it up. And we were probably 45 minutes from the nearest town, Jordan. Mm-hmm. And we got out, but we didn't have any cell service. So you stopped at the nearest ranch house, right?
Yep.
First one with the light on.
Yep.
Stopped in there. They called we didn't know if there was a doctor actually in Jordan, so we asked them.
We weren't sure if we had to go to Lewistown or to Jordan.
Yeah, and they said there was. So they called the doctor, and they said he'll be there waiting. Mm-hmm. So we're driving down. I'm holding my hand. It's all taped up. So it stopped the bleeding. It was a pretty good job by Dad. But we get in town, and we walk in, and they get me all stitched up. They clean it out. It's probably, I don't know, we were in there for an hour and a half.
I got good pictures of you laying in there in your hunter's orange.
Yeah. We still have the hunter's orange that has the blood all over it.
We do?
Yeah, because I've worn it a couple times going back there. Yeah. But yeah, we were probably in there an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah, just getting it cleaned up, stitched up. And then
they had to test it and make sure that it didn't cut the tendons.
Yeah.
To make sure you didn't end up needing actual surgery.
Mm-hmm. So they stitched me up and went back to the camper and had some brats. And
yeah.
Yeah. And was that the year Uncle Zach was out there or no? Yeah, he was, right? I think it was the year it was just him.
Was it?
I think.
It might have been.
Yeah.
I think it might have been, actually. Yeah, because we got back. Yeah, it was. Because
you were going to drop him off with the girls with him if you had to go to Lewistown.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, we got back to the camper and had brats. And
went hunting.
Did we get Demi's buck after that?
Yeah, the next day. That was the one that was like World War II out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, geez. So that's all pretty cool. Lots of memories. You remember even the other bucks that you shot, each story about like each one.
Yeah.
off track before we get into your moose hunt. What do you remember about your greatest basketball or football game or any sporting game ever? Like, what's your best game you've ever played?
It was actually last year. It was the playing game for the playoffs for state, or no, it was divisionals. And I was playing pretty good all year, and then that night I just was playing really good, just couldn't miss. And I had a buzzer beater in the first quarter. I ended up with 26 points. Like, our best player, he's the best player in the state. He should have won Gatorade Player of the Year. But he was just having an off night. He wasn't hitting from three. So I had kind of had to step up. He fouled out with like 3 minutes left. I kind of had to step up and just help us win, because the team we played was a good team, and we played them in the regular season. We went into double overtime with them.
So what do you remember from years before, all your junior high or your MYF days, AAU days?
Well, I think one of my favorite memories was in NYF is the championship game. We were in the Grizz Stadium, and I was running the ball, and I broke probably like 10 tackles. I was running zigzagging back and forth.
Yeah.
And I was running, and I got tackled at the 1 yard line, but it was after probably 200 yards of running, just zigzagging back across the field, breaking tackles. And then we ended up winning that game like 26-6 or something like that. Yeah. And
so what I was curious about is what you remember more. Do you remember individual hunts more, or do you remember sporting event stuff more?
Definitely the hunts, just because there's so many games that it's hard to remember. I remember the best moments, but I definitely remember, I could definitely describe the hunt more than my best game. Like the Corvallis game we played, I remember I played good and like hit a couple shots, but I couldn't remember like what happened in the second quarter or what happened in the third. Or
well, what I want everyone to see, or to kind of think about, is like, as your kids are growing up, like how impactful hunting can be. Like, get them out hunting. And all the sports we've done have been awesome, and I think it builds a lot of character. But generally, you tend to remember more of it as like a whole. Of like, those MYF teams were fun. Those football teams when you were a kid. And the basketball stuff's all fun. And you're going to definitely have some great games you remember. But I don't think there's a hunt we've been on that you even remember details from hunts we didn't shoot stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, our peeing for distance contest hunts.
Yeah. Standing on the logging road. Yeah.
I think when you go hunting, for some reason, you tend to remember more detail about like every second, where we camp.
Yeah.
Things that go wrong, things that go right.
Well, I mean, there's hunts where we don't shoot anything or we don't see anything for all day. We're sitting out there all day in the heat and don't see anything. And I can
out-hike you to the truck.
No. Well, this was when, I was young, but definitely once we get into the moose hunt, we'll figure out who's beating who.
Well, it took you 16 years.
I would say I beat you last year.
Yeah, right. That's not true. All right. So that kind of leads up your little hunting career, and you've done. Actually, I want you to tell people about your bear hunts. Yeah.
So my first bear was the first time I ever met Brandon,
my business partner. Yeah.
Yep. It was the first time we ever really actually hung out with him for a while. Like, we went hunting with him.
Yeah. Brandon and I had kind of been working together in the summer a little bit, but we hadn't. MKC was. We weren't even actually technically business partners yet, or maybe we had become business partners like on paper, like that week.
Yeah.
But we were still like brand new, and MKC was really an idea.
Yeah.
I think we had a Blackfoot drop, but the speed goat knife was only an idea, and we had some prototypes.
Yeah.
So yeah, we were going hunting, and Brandon was like, well, hey, let's shoot some content. If you and Hank are going hunting, I'll come down, I'll go hunt with you guys, and let's shoot some photos.
Yeah.
That was kind of the gist of the hunt.
Yeah. So we were going elk hunting. Like that was like you brought your bows. I brought a rifle in case we saw a bear. But it's early that morning. That night it rained. It was wet, and we got up there in the Jeep, and we got out, and we were probably hiking 30 minutes, maybe. Was it a while?
Probably,
an hour?
Probably close to an hour.
Yeah. And I don't have any binos at this right now or like anything.
Yeah, because you were 12?
Yeah. So I was just carrying a rifle, and you guys had binos. And
yeah, you were 12.
Yeah. And I'm looking at this hillside as we're walking, and I see something that looks like it's moving, but like it's so far away that it's like, oh, should I say something or should I not? So I was like, Dad, I think there's like might be a bear over there.
Yeah, you were like, there's a bear.
Yeah. And you get him out, and you're like, yeah, that is a bear. And I'm like, there's no way that's a bear. That's crazy.
It was over a mile away.
Yeah, it was a long ways away. And so we go around this bend kind of and just walk. We're starting to walk towards it and like try and get closer. And then we stop, and you're like, we're going to have to drop way down in here, like, what, 1,000 feet?
Yeah, close. Probably 800 anyway. But we were going to have to drop all the way into this creek bottom and then hike all the way back up the other side to get to that bear and then find him again.
Because he was all the way on the top. Like,
right. And it was like a really nasty, steep, brushy,
soaking wet
creek bottom.
Yeah,
and it was raining.
Wet.
Yeah, it was sopping wet.
And we kind of stop, and
so I was kind of like, hey, we saw bears a couple weeks ago, like back behind us. I was like, do you want to go after that bear, or do you want to go look for those other bears we saw? Because I was like, there's no way we're going to go all the way through this bottom, all the way back up, find that bear. But you were like, I want to go after that bear.
Yeah. I honestly, at that point, like now I'd probably be like thinking a little different, just because like the chances of us seeing it again were very low. Mm-hmm. And back then I was just like, well, there's a bear. I'm sure we're going to see it again once we get up there. But there's a ton of stories where they just vanish.
Right.
And like I was thinking like, yeah, we're going after it. He's right there.
Yeah.
And I wasn't thinking about the hike or anything, how hard it was going to be. And so we start heading down. I think you slipped a couple times. Like we all slipped a couple. It was soaking wet. Pants were wet. And we get to the bottom, cross the creek, and we start heading back up. And we get to the top, and we don't really see him. Kind of walk over the top of that, like the top of the mountain, and you're glassing this hillside, and I see him again. Mm-hmm. And so I think Brandon stays behind us, and we sneak up. We set up.
He was only probably 100 yards from us when you saw him, 150.
Yeah. And we kind of sneaked up, though, to just get a better look at him and get a shot. And we're trying to set up, and there's a couple of times where he set up, and there's the gun's an inch off my shoulder. And I'm like, yeah, I'm good to go. But I don't even notice the gun's off my shoulder. I just want to shoot it.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, well, you're not really. So then we keep like readjusting. I'm worried the bear's going to see us, but.
Well, and you were having a hard time finding it in your scope. I was trying to get you a really good rest. So, with little kids, you're like trying to get a good rest, trying to get you in the scope. But he was feeding, so he just kept moving. Mm-hmm. And so we kind of just had to keep following him.
Yeah, we kept having to readjust, and because he kept walking behind trees, and so we readjusted a couple times, mm-hmm. And then finally he stopped, and I shot. He came running. He flipped around and came running to our left, ran down the mountain, and I kind of stand up to make sure I could get another shot if I needed to, mm-hmm. And we run up to this log. I get set up on the log, and he like crashes down. He was
behind.
Trees.
Well, he was behind a tree. Remember, you had a second shot.
Oh yeah.
He ran and stopped behind a tree,
and then I shot again.
And I told you, I said he's hurt. He's gonna come downhill. He's gonna come out to the left. Mm-hmm. So be aiming there, and as soon as he steps out, as soon as you see him, you shoot him.
Yeah, I don't. Now that you say that, I remember it. But yeah. So,
and as soon as he stepped out, you shot him, and that's when he tumbled down the hill.
Yeah. Okay. Now it's all coming back to me now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember we he tumbled down, and we kind of sat there for a little bit, and I had my foot up on this log or whatever, and I was just shaking.
Yeah, like, so that was, and I have video of this also. I should put over this, but you stayed super calm all the way through all the stalks. Mm-hmm. Even after the first shot, you stayed calm. You made a great second shot, and the minute he like tumbled down the hill, and I was like, "Great job" or whatever, you went into full body shakes.
Yeah, I like when I shoot, I stay calm. Like, I'm good at staying calm. Like, I don't think about, like, oh, man, if I shoot, this is going to be awesome. Like, I stay calm all the way through, and as soon as I know that thing is down, I start shaking. Like, every time. Every time. I stay dead calm. I never shake until I know that thing's dead, and then I'm like, then it all comes to me and hits me.
Yeah. But, so that was cool. We actually have photos of, like, the prototype speed goats with that bear. We got to use, that was the first time a speed goat ever been used on a wild game animal.
Yeah.
We have cool pictures of you packing it out in your pack.
Yep.
Yeah, that was just a cool time.
Yeah.
Tell me about your next bear.
So my next bear,
2 years later.
Yeah. It was my first bear with my bow. It's the first animal ever with my bow, actually. And I went walking behind the house looking for deer or elk or whatever.
Yeah, you left your bedroom and went down along the river bottom behind where we live.
Yeah, and tried to get out there before daylight. Got out there, hiked around for a while. Then I started walking back, and I'm walking through this thick stuff, and it's like layers of trees and grass, and it's like the fence, our property line where the fence is at, it like goes down and then drops down into this layer of timber, and then you walk probably 80, 90 yards, and it's grass again. And there's probably 3 of those before you have to cross another creek. So I'm on the last layer, like right before our property line. Like, I'm 30 yards from the property line. And I'm walking through. It's super thick, and there's one giant pine tree just right in the middle. And I'm walking through, and I have my head down, like trying to duck under trees and stuff. And all of a sudden I hear scratching on this tree. And I look up, and there's a black bear just poking its head out right around the corner of this pine tree. And I'm like, oh. So I stick an arrow in, and I get my release on. And then I was like, man, am I allowed to shoot this? Because it's archery only back there. And I didn't want to shoot something if I wasn't allowed to. So I call my dad. And I was like, hey, can I shoot this bear?
You were whispering.
Yeah, I was like, hey, can I shoot this bear? And he's like, yeah, how far are you? And I was like, 13 yards. And he's like, you probably should shoot it. And then he's like, here, let me check. And then he's like, yeah, you can. And so I get a better angle. I come walking around, and I'm at like 10 yards now. And I shoot.
You told me, you were like, hang on.
Yeah, I was like, hang on. And I put my phone in my pocket.
On speaker.
Yeah, on speaker. And I get around, and I like shoot. And this one, I was actually like nervous. I don't know if I was shaking, but I rushed it, and I like clipped him, and he like climbed up the tree even higher. And
when you first saw that bear, was it snapping its jaws or woofing or doing anything?
No, he was scratching on the tree, and then I came walking around and shot again, and then he climbed the tree, and then he was like drooling and snapping his jaws and stuff. And
so the first time you kind of just clipped him.
Yeah. Yep. And then he was standing kind of 2 feet on the ground and 2 feet on the tree. Mm-hmm. And then he climbed higher into the tree, like 20 feet in the tree probably. And I get my next arrow, but like I had mechanicals, and I had one that it like popped out. So I had to like ditch that one and throw another one in. And I pulled back, like it was like straight up in the air like this. And I shot and hit him right in the chest. He spun around and fell right into the trees. And I was like, oh my God. Oh my God.
He started freaking out, and I was wondering what the hell was going on.
Yeah.
If you were being eaten or what was up. And you were like, I killed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, and you were 14 years old. That was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. That was about 2 weeks before we went down to elk hunt.
Yep.
Or a week.
Yep. And then, a week later, you shot a bull elk with your bow.
Mm-hmm.
So at 14 years old, that was pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good week stretch.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's get into the moose hunt.
Yeah.
We could talk about your elk hunt, but I don't know. Do you want to talk about your elk hunt?
I mean, we can if you want.
Why don't you tell people about it?
Yeah, we can do a quick one real quick.
Yeah.
So Gary, who's the nicest guy in the world, just
to you, not to me.
Well, yeah, but it's just because I'm better looking. So, so he's super nice guy. Everyone down there, like, they're just great people. He texted my dad on Instagram, right?
Yeah.
And offered to have us kids and Jess go down and hunt.
Mm-hmm.
And so my dad took me the first year, and we went down, just us two. Went down, and drove down to New Mexico ourselves. Nice road trip. I love the road trips, so
yeah,
those are always fun. And went down for what, 4 days? I shot him on day 4, I think.
It was supposed to be a 5 or 6 day hunt.
Yeah. Get down there. They have a little nice setup with campers, and it's camp, and it's in town, so you drive out and then you kind of hike around, and it's not like the hunting I'm used to. I was definitely surprised with the hunting because there's elk bugling all over. There's elk everywhere.
Yeah, so it's a big ranch that we're hunting on, but we're camped out at, like, he's got some campers on his property in town where a couple RVs where they kind of have camp.
Yeah.
But then you drive out to the ranch, and it's just a gorgeous, unbelievably huge ranch.
Yeah.
But the mountains there are not, in that area, are not like our mountains. Like when we go elk hunt here, it's like you death march yourself up and down these mountains. There you can, like, hike all day long.
Yeah.
But there's patches of timber and then patches of big open prairie ground. But they're just, the density of elk down there is awesome.
Insane. Yeah. Yeah. So we went out day 1. It was dark. We pulled up and we got out and hiked it like 30 yards probably, and was just sitting there listening. And there was bulls bugling everywhere. There was some down in the valley to the right of us. There were some right in front of us. There were some to the left of us. Just bulls bugling everywhere. And I'm sitting there. I'm like, I can't believe this is insane. Because, like, I've heard like 1 or 2 bulls bugle in my hunting career, which is 3 years. And I've heard now 20 bulls bugling in a matter of 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And so we we sit there till light, and Gary's like, so this herd of elk come normally walking up right here. So I get my bow, and we were kind of just sitting there, and then all of a sudden someone spots elk right behind us, and I can see the ears of a cow. I never saw the bull. I can see the ears of a cow, and we kind of get set up, and our wind wasn't great, so they came walking up, and we spooked them. But I only saw I saw a couple cows. I never saw the bull, but we ended up spooking them, and I don't know what, probably, did we ever find those elk again, or was it a different herd?
I don't really even remember. I only really remember, like, the day that you got your bull.
Really? Yeah, because I remember we saw those elk, we spooked them, and then we went to a different spot. Mm-hmm. And I don't think we ever put another stalk on that day. We just glassed them up, and then we made our game plan for the next morning. Mm-hmm. So we go up there. Next morning, I think we see the herd of elk that I shot my bull in, and we kind of found where they were. And then I think it was day 3 when I shot my bull.
I think so.
Yeah, because we got in there, we found them, and we could hear them talking. And then I remember seeing a bull rubbing the trees, and they were moving up. And Gary knows that ranch like the back of his hand, knew exactly where they were going. So we hustle, we try and beat them to the spot, which we were a little
Trying
late.
to beat them to their bedding area.
Yeah. And we get set up down there, and they're still talking, and they kind of go quiet. And then we're sitting there probably, I mean, we sat there a while, probably 3 hours until we made that first stalk.
If not more.
Yeah, 3 or 4 hours.
It was driving you crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gary and I were napping.
Yeah. I was sitting there. I couldn't nap.
And every now and then that bull would bugle out of his bed, and Hank would wake us up and go, "They're bugling."
Yeah.
And we'd be like, "Yeah, we heard him."
Yeah.
And then back to sleep we'd go, and you were going crazy.
Yeah. We ended up, though, seeing, because we didn't ever see him really that whole day. And then 3-4 hours in, we ended up seeing the bull. There's 3 bulls probably sitting up on this hill. So me and my dad sneak forward into this bunch of grass in the middle of this meadow. And
yeah, we tried stalking in on
yeah,
them.
but we kind of just decided like we didn't want to blow them out.
Well, yeah, where they were bedded, we got to probably 25 or 30 yards, but there was a bunch of brush and timber in the way, and there was no way we were going to get closer. So we just sat there for quite a while.
Yeah.
And then they eventually got up and kind of fed away.
Well, no, because Gary called, and all of a sudden they just came running in.
That's right.
Like
and
these
that
3 bulls. Yeah. Because the big bull, there was like a 6x6 that came running into our left, and he was at 55 yards, but his vitals were covered.
Yeah, you were at full draw.
Yeah.
And he was at 55 yards, but you had a little pine tree right
in front of his
vitals.
And there's 2 bigger bulls to our left, about 55 yards. And then this spike comes running right up to us like 10 yards. 10 yards.
And Hank's at full draw.
Yeah, I'm at full draw. And I'm like, I can't hold this anymore. So I had to let down. And I tried to let down right as that bull was walking behind this tree. But I'm pretty sure he heard me or saw me. He was so close. And he busted out. And I tried to find where that bigger bull was. And I might have been able to draw and shoot before he took off. But then they ended up busting out of there. So we came walking back to Gary. Then we sat there another couple hours. And later that day, we went up, kind of hiked up where we saw those bulls the first time. And we bugled on top. And we could hear those bulls. And that bull came running right in.
Yeah, you and I kind of started hiking down towards those elk to work our way in. Gary hung back a little.
Yeah.
To call.
Yep.
And there was a big tree, and it was kind of like we had to try to be on like which side are we going to be on.
Yeah.
And
because there's a bull rubbing a tree, raking a tree to our left, and then luckily you saw it. I didn't see it. You saw a cow moving to our right, so we got back on the other side of that tree.
Yeah, we moved around that tree, and there was a bull pushing a cow coming towards us, and I got Hank around, and I was behind him, and you timed it perfect because you drew back before that cow stepped in, and I was ranging.
Yeah,
telling you range. I ranged her, and then that bull stepped up and kind of pushed her out.
Yeah,
and as soon as he stepped up in there and stopped. And I couldn't see the bull.
Yeah.
You did all that on your own. You were at full draw, and I whispered to you. It was the first one was a cow.
Yeah.
And I couldn't see what was coming behind because of the tree. And then as soon as that bull stopped, you shot it. And that bull went 150 yards or something, and we saw him go down.
Yeah.
So that was cool.
Yeah, that was really cool.
So not a bad time at 14 years old.
Yeah.
So anyway. That's all leading up to our moose hunt.
Yep.
This was kind of a situation where it was a cancellation hunt that I was able to buy with Dustin Rowe up in British Columbia. Bought it this spring, and initially wanted to take your sister because you've done some pretty cool hunting stuff.
Yeah. You offered Sadie first, right? She was kind of in basketball, so...
Yeah, I offered Sadie, but I mean, we knew she was going to be in college and probably not going to go. So, I kind of knew she couldn't go.
Yeah.
But offered it to Macy, and it was really cool because you were, as much as I know you wanted to go, you were like encouraging her to go.
Yeah, I was hoping she'd go because it would have been really cool for her.
Yeah. And she was excited about it, and then she got stressed out about school and missing schoolwork and sports and stuff. So she kind of backed out, and then you were like, heck yeah, I'll go.
Yeah.
And then you started to kind of try to back out.
Yeah. I was worried because I was less worried about the school. I was more worried about just football because, like, I felt bad leaving just because I've been with them all summer and everything. And then just felt bad leaving right in the beginning of the football season.
Yeah, because you were going to have to miss basically the whole first 10 days of football.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a couple games.
Yeah. And I was like, man, I was really thinking about just staying, but then it ended up probably a month before the hunt. I was like, yeah, I'm going. And
I think you had enough people telling you, like,
well, all the people that told me that I should go, the one that really got me thinking was just because he's on the team was Brady. He was like, yeah, I'd go.
You're like, starting running back.
Yeah, I'd go. And I was like, just like thinking, because if Brady would go, I'm like, well, I guess I should probably go.
Yeah.
With all the people that told me, I was like, Brady's probably right.
Yeah. Of all the adults telling Hank he should go, it was a kid that, but it's cool. A senior running back that is on the team was like, no, you should go.
Yeah.
Sophomore year, like, that's an experience of a lifetime. So we drove up, kind of camped along the way. We drove up to Banff, British Columbia the first night.
Yep.
Actually got to hear elk bugling from our tent.
Yeah. Yeah,
which was cool.
Yeah. Dude, I think we heard the cows, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
We illegally camped in Banff.
Yeah. Right in this little neighborhood.
Cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
Because it's not legal to camp up there. So we kind of like drove up into a subdivision and towards the end of a subdivision and just kind of tried to hide out.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't set our tent up till after dark.
Yeah. Yeah, sat in the truck for a little bit.
Then we drove up through Jasper National Park and kind of out like Rocky Mountain House area and up through Grand Prairie and all that area.
Yeah.
What do you like about the road trips?
Just talking and like, I don't know. I just like especially on the way up, it was just me and you. So super pretty. Like everywhere we go is always pretty.
I'm super pretty.
No. Yeah. The nights were long nights sleeping with him.
What are you talking about?
They were long nights, 10 long nights.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, just the conversations we have and stuff like that. So
yeah, just some alone time, which is cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then we picked up Riley, our videographer. He flew into Grand Prairie, and then we drove on up to Watson Lake, Yukon.
Yep.
Which is just north of British Columbia. What do you think of Canada? Like just the size of it and everything driving through it.
It's a lot. Like the U.S. is big, but Canada's giant. Like, because everything is just you think you're getting close to the Northwest Territories, and you look and you have 13 hours left.
Yeah.
Like you've been driving for 10 hours, but you still have 13 hours left.
Yeah.
Like it's just giant up there.
Yeah.
But,
so we got up there, and then I whipped your ass in pool at the lodge or at the guides. You can't even.
I won. I would like the record to show I won.
Well, I did scratch on one ball at the end after I beat your ass, but then after that, I just beat you worse every single time in pool.
Wow.
But it never stops his mouth from motoring, that's for sure. He actually embarrassed himself in front of the guides.
I did win.
They did say there that they hoped you shot better than you played pool, as it turns out.
Which turns out I do. So,
yeah. So we took a float plane in to camp, took off of a lake in Watson Lake, and we flew back into British Columbia about 100 miles. What did you think about the float plane trip?
It was wild. Just the landscape there, like just how much, just the difference from Montana to that. It's so wet, just like is wild.
Like the lakes, you mean? And the swamps?
There's so many lakes. It was really cool to see it from a top view because we've been driving through a bunch of it, but like you can only see so much.
It's all brush.
But flying over it, you can see for miles and miles.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just super cool to see the difference. Like a lot of what we were flying over wasn't timber, it was swamps. Like you'd see trees here and there, but it was just swampy.
Yeah. What were you nervous about, like, because this is a horseback hunt, we're going to have to be on horses for 10 days. Were you nervous about the horse part going into it?
Not really, because if I had to, I'd just get off and walk.
Yeah.
But I ended up having the best horse probably in the whole, like, guiding system out of all the horses. I probably had the best one.
Yeah, you had an old legend of a horse, so he took good care of you.
Yeah.
Reggie?
Yeah. Reginald. Yeah, his real name is Reggie, but they all call him Reginald because he's the original horse.
Yeah.
But
so, we had an awesome guide, James. Moana, his girlfriend, was our packer.
You're going to have to cut this out.
Why?
Because it's Jim.
No, well, James. James
is it?
Yeah, but it's just Jim for short.
Yeah.
I don't have to cut anything out.
I'm pretty sure you called him the wrong name.
No, it's James, but Jim.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, we took off from camp, packed in 8 or so miles on the horses.
Yeah.
Set up camp. So the next morning was like time for hunting, right?
Yeah. We woke up and
hiked up to a point.
Yep.
Above camp, and we actually packed all our stuff on our backs to go for like 5 or 6 days.
Yeah.
When we left camp that morning.
Yeah, and then we ended up he was planning on stopping anyways just to glass, and then we ended up finding that bull. Yeah,
so we glassed up a bull right off the bat that morning.
Yeah, probably 30 minutes into glassing or less. Yeah.
Big bull. Pretty obvious we were going to go after him. So we actually just dropped right back down that hill and into camp and dumped a bunch of our stuff out of our packs to just lighten up.
Yep.
And then went to stalk in on that bull. We hiked about a mile or so, mile and a half, got in there, and we got to 620 yards on that bull.
Yeah.
Where we could first see him.
Yep.
And he was bedded. What do you remember thinking at that point?
That point, I was a little nervous just because I was confident I could hit that shot, but I was on a hillside. Like, I wouldn't have had a great rest. Like, I wouldn't have been able to lay down or anything. I would have been sitting on my butt basically with packs and tripods
or probably standing.
Yeah, probably standing and shooting off a tripod. And it was just like a lot could go wrong from 620 yards standing up.
Mm-hmm.
And when you made the decision to try and get closer, I wasn't upset or anything at all, because I was like, it's a long shot standing up, and if we could get closer, it would have been great, and we were in a perfect spot to get closer. Like when we got there, like 400 and some yards in, I would have been able to sit down, get a good rest, like all that, but it just didn't work out. But.
Yeah, I know Hank's a good shot, but it was like morning number one.
Yeah.
And of course, when you see a big bull 30 minutes into morning number one, you think probably, well, this is a 10-day hunt. We're going to see a ton of moose.
Yeah.
So my decision making was, the last thing I want is you to have to take a not so great shot. Even if you could have gotten a good rest, it's still 620 yards, and he's bedded. And it was like, well, I think we can get closer. He's not going to go anywhere that we didn't think. And so we did. We hiked through the brush and the timber, but it's so thick in that country. Like, it was actually hard to find a spot that we could even get.
Yeah. Well, we lost sight of him for a while.
Yeah, almost an hour probably.
Yeah. Yep.
And we're looking at our Onyx maps, trying to like look at terrain and find like, where do we have to get on this hill to see across this little draw.
Yeah.
Where he was bedded. And when we finally got to that spot, it was an awesome spot. But as soon as we laid eyes on him, he was up and feeding like into the timber.
Mm-hmm.
And you would have had 30 seconds to get set up and shoot him.
If that.
And we were in the way, and you still would have had to build a position.
Yeah. because I took me a second to find him, and then when I found him, I could only see his butt, so I didn't ever really have a good shot.
Yeah. So we didn't think he was spooked or anything, so we actually kind of cleared out a space on that hill, and it was wet, rainy day. Mm-hmm. We set up a Stone Glacier tarp and over the top of us, and we just thought, well, we're just going to sit in this spot the whole rest of the day, because like this evening, because the sun had come out just a little bit.
Yeah.
And we thought maybe he got hot and just went and rebedded in the shade. We thought, well, he might just walk right back out tonight. Mm-hmm. So we sat there friggin' 14 more hours.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole rest of the day.
I think at the end of the day, I figured out, I think it was 13.
Yeah.
Yeah. 13 hours.
Sat there, and he never came back out. So we went back to camp and thought, we'd go back up on that hill the next morning. We went up and glassed for him. Yeah. Couldn't find him.
Well, was it the third day when we found him?
Yeah.
Third day?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because we watched all kind of that day. Didn't find him, I think, right?
Yeah.
And then the morning of the third day,
well, hold on. So the day 2,
or no, the night of day 2, we found him, didn't we?
So day 2, we went up and we glassed a little bit, but then we came back down. That's when we spotted the other bull.
Oh, we did?
Yeah, because remember we hiked to that other spot. We hiked all the way around on the horses and got to the other glassing point, and we found that other bull that I ended up shooting.
We did that on day 2?
Yeah, that was day 2. Then
we hiked around several miles and got to a vantage point where we actually looked out over kind of a whole different piece of country. Because when we spotted Hank's eventual bull, he was several miles away from us at that point.
Yeah.
So, no chance of getting there that day.
Mm-hmm.
So we went back to camp, and then was it that night we found, or the morning of the third day? No, it was that night we found your bull, their first bull, but he was like way off.
Yeah.
I think that second night. And that's when we decided the third morning to just...
Yeah, so we spotted him we were basically watching him that whole afternoon, and then we hiked back, and then we basically packed up camp. Always spent the night, and then we packed up camp, and we headed back over that third
day 4.
Day. Yeah, day 4. Day 4.
Yeah, day 3 we saw your first bull, but he was way, way off.
Yeah.
And not accessible. So we packed up camp the morning of day 4 and on the horses and decided to pack back around to a different campsite that Jim knew about.
Yeah.
To put us more in that area of the second bull that we had found.
Yeah.
So we pack up camp. We hike our horses, kind of trying to warm them up and make sure pack saddles are good and stuff. We hike them half a mile or so from camp at least. Yep. And then we got on, we were riding probably 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Or we were riding a little longer, but then Jim got on a little bit later.
Yeah, he
rode like 100 yards.
Yeah, he probably rode for 10 minutes maybe. Maybe.
And explain what happened at that point.
So we got on, we're riding for a while, and he got on, and we were walking through this
and Jim's
timbery.
The guide.
Yeah, Jim's the guide.
He's leading.
He's in the front. I'm the second guy, and my dad's right behind me. And then I think it was like
Riley behind us.
Riley, and then Moana and Easton. And all of a sudden we're walking through this timber, and there's this horse that he was very the whole time they kept saying like he can kind of just flip out whenever, like
he's a pack horse. Yep.
Yeah. And
Jim was leading 2 pack horses.
Yep. So he had a riding horse and 2 pack horses. And all of a sudden he starts to flip out. So my dad's yelling at me like, get off your horse, because you never know like what my horse is going to do. Like if he breaks off and runs right at my horse is probably going to try and get out of the way and run through the trees too. So I get off and I time mine up, or actually before that, I jump off, and that horse is still flipping out, kind of goes around, looks like he's like kind of calming down, and then comes back around, makes a U, and just runs right between Jim and the pack horse that he was in front of the horse that was freaking out, and hits Jim with the big old pack boxes that, I mean, those things are, and they had a bunch of weight in them, and it's a 1,500-pound horse running right into him.
Yeah, it
full
was
speed,
like Yeti coolers hitting you.
Yeah, and hits him right in the leg. He falls down, kind of, there's a bunch of rocks, big rocks around him, and that horse finally breaks off, and he goes running through the trees up above us. I tie my horse up to a tree. I go run over to Jim, and that horse turns around, and you could hear trees breaking coming back, and the trees were just tipping, like him running back, like he's out of control right now. Like, he comes running back. Jim's yelling at everyone, "Get behind a big tree, get behind a big tree." And I'm standing, Jim's right in front of me, and it looks like he's coming right back for me and Jim. And then he kind of goes right up the middle, and then he kind of calms down the Packer, Easton, who was they were great. Moana and Easton were great. He grabs him, ties him up to a big tree. Everyone runs over to Jim. His legs messed up. Like,
yeah, that pack box, crushed him in the knee, and then when he got, that pack box hitting him, drove him off of his horse, and then he landed on these big boulders.
Yeah,
I think on his hip on the other side.
Yep.
So left knee was messed up, right hip.
Yeah,
and we thought for sure he had at least a broken leg and maybe even a broken hip. Mm-hmm. Who knows what other kind of injuries. He immediately started turning white. Got his pant leg down and kind of cut his long johns off or open and looking to see if like there was bone sticking out.
Yeah.
I started in reaching with the outfitter to just let him know, like, hey, we've had a non-life threatening wreck, but we're going to probably have to figure out how to get him out. And, I wanted the outfitter to have time to arrange a plane and a guide and everybody to come in and help. And so after a while, Jim decides, we get him up, and after a while he decides there's really no option. Like, we got to go somewhere from here. So he starts to kind of limp along the trail, and the longer he limped, the better he kind of moved.
Yeah.
And talk about tough. Tougher than hell. He ended up limping the next 4 or 5 miles out.
Yeah, it was a while.
And
a long ways.
Through swamp and brush and everything else. And he got to feeling decent enough to be where he could keep moving. We kind of got to the break in the trail where it was like, if we keep going straight, you're going to the lake and flying out. Or if you go left, we're going to go hunting.
Yeah.
And he decided to stay in. So we went the last couple miles into our new campsite and unloaded camp. And the Packers took back all the rest of the horses and stuff and dropped us off.
Yeah. Yeah. And later that night.
We decided to hike down into this little area and glass the ridge that your bull we had seen.
Yeah, because I didn't know how close we were to where that bull's at. Like he was saying the horse camp was at.
Yeah, we were about a mile from like where we first saw your bull, down on those, or 3/4 of a mile. We were right on the same ridge.
Yeah. And so then we went out for an evening hunt. Right?
Yeah, and we hiked kind of down across this little draw and set up in a flat area and just to glass that ridge that we had seen your bull on. And really it was to just also give Jim a rest for the rest of the night. Yeah. Like he was pretty banged up. We were just going to glass the rest of the night. And an hour before dark, your bull stepped out.
Yeah.
And that was pretty cool.
That was sweet.
Your bull and a smaller bull stepped out together.
Yep.
And started feeding. What did you think when you first saw him?
Well, honestly, I wasn't expecting to see anything that night. Like it was everything that happened that day, got into camp, just went out for an evening hunt. And when Jim, because we just got done getting a bunch of food, dinner, and we were just done cooking, and we're sitting there on the hillside, and Jim's glassing, and all of a sudden he's like, "Oh, there's the moose. They're right there." And for a second, I didn't know what to do because I was like, "Well, I wasn't really expecting it." I was like kind of sitting there, and I'm like looking at Jim, looking at you, and like we're glassing him. And then so I instantly grab my gun and put a bolt in it and like make sure I'm ready. And then we're sitting there calm, like just trying not to move, make noise or anything. We're just trying to figure out what they're doing.
Yeah, because we kind of wanted to figure out, we were hoping, and it looked at first like there was a little lake in front of us, between us and those moose, and a little draw. And we thought those moose were going to probably they'd come out, and we thought they were going to feed down that hill kind of towards that lake, which would have put them 300 yards from us.
Yeah.
If they had come all the way to the bottom.
Yeah.
And so our thing was like, well, we're just going to kind of hang here and watch them.
Mm-hmm.
And they did. They started down that hill at first.
Yeah, they came down
maybe 100 yards.
Probably 100 yards. And so I get down, we get a bunch of packs set up, and I'm laying there, and I'm just waiting. Hopefully they come walking down.
At this point, they're probably 600 yards away, 550. Yeah. But then they kind of immediately walk back up to the top of the ridge, and then like all the way to the top.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh shit, like they might disappear. And then they do.
Yeah, there's a couple times where I was getting worried. The first time I was like, okay, they're just kind of feeding, and they disappear for a while. Then they come back, and for a long time you could only see his antlers. Like you can just see the antlers moving. I'm sitting there. There's flies all over me. I'm trying not to move and like mess up my rest or anything. Mm-hmm. And like he keeps disappearing, going back and forth. Like for an hour, I didn't have a shot.
Yeah, and you were watching me your rifle scope. We were watching and spotting scopes, and then you were always like, "Do you see him? Do you see him?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "No," but he'll be back out. And the whole time I'm thinking, God, I hope he comes back out. Yeah. And then I'd be like, "Yep, I got him." And then you'd be like, "Yeah, okay, I got him." And like, "Oh, he's just on the right side of that tree." And you just kept following him in your scope. And at this point, you kept asking me range, and I was adjusting the dope on your scope every now and then, reaching over like your MOA, and usually around 12, 13, I think MOA.
Yeah.
Of height adjustment. We didn't really have any wind. And, he was up in that 650 to 700 yard range.
Yeah.
But always out of range. And I could never really get a great range on him. I could range like a tree he was close to.
Yeah. He never, like the buckbrush there is so tall that like he was never broadside and able to shoot.
And we considered a shot or two where like a bullet probably punches right through the brush and hits him, but it was like not really the right thing to do.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple times where I'm like, I'm getting worried. I'm like, okay, the next time he comes out, I'm shooting him. And then he comes out, and I'm like, oh, there's like, I can't shoot right now. Like, there's not a shot. And
just
then
not an ethical shot.
Yeah. And then I'm like, all right, next time he comes out, I'm shooting him no matter what. And I'm like, no, I can't shoot that.
Yeah.
And like, I was just like, wanted to shoot him so bad, but I'm like, I can't miss this shot. Like,
right.
This is the one shot. Like,
what's going through your mind that the whole time you're watching? Like, what's your heart rate doing? What's your breath doing? What are you thinking?
Well, I stayed calm, but for that whole, like the hour, there was a couple times where like I had to like basically just stop and thinking about the bull and like think about like just staying calm. Like there's a couple times where I just had to bring myself back to where I just had to calm back down. Like we were just shooting at a target, like
reset,
breathing. Yeah. Reset. And I probably did that 2 or 3 times where I had to just reset and, just trying to stay as calm as possible without shaking.
Do you feel like you were more confident in that situation because of the training you'd had, like with Brian Morgan?
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I was like, it's 620 yards and I've shot with guys at 1,000 and I've hit 15 out of 17 shots at 1,000 yards. And I'm like, I can hit this shot for sure.
Yeah.
Like, this for sure I can hit.
Yeah. So that confidence, and we had you set on packs with your gun, and then we had your arm kind of through a tripod and your left hand was pinching your stock of your gun against the tripod.
Yeah.
So you had a really nice back support.
Yeah, the tripod, the front, like you need the front to be steady, but the back is really what is hard to get steady because it's so close to your body. It's not like you can put packs under there because then you're like wonky. Your body's all.
And you were having to move and follow that moose the whole hour.
Yeah.
I mean, he moved probably 300 yards at least before you ever got a shot.
Yeah, because I kept having to drag that tripod over with me because I kept moving over. And then that tripod, I'd have to drag it over because I needed the rest because that back end is what is moving because it's not the front where your pack's at that's going up and down. It's like that where your shoulder's at. It's like that's where it needs to be really steady and like sturdy, and that training definitely helped.
So there's a little depression that I could see in my spotting scope, and I really thought when he walked through that depression, just the natural slope of that hill, that's where he was gonna present himself a shot. You could kind of see, and I was like, all right, he's gonna walk into this like you're gonna have a shot. I had a good range, 644 yards. Your dope was right. That bull stepped up, and what'd you do?
Shot and dropped him. Like he didn't take another step.
He just absolutely dumped.
Mm-hmm.
And did you see him drop in your scope?
I did.
Yep.
Yeah, I saw it because I shot and I saw his back end drop down and front end tip over and
And then what'd you do?
Started screaming and yelling. Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was awesome.
I think when people see the reaction of the guide, of myself, of Riley, the video guy, our guy, Riley, and then, of you and me, that whole reaction was all, I think, a culmination of like the whole 4 days.
Yeah.
Right. The kind of the disappointment of moose number one. Then we didn't see any moose.
Mm-hmm.
You start wondering like, well, crap.
Yeah.
Did we make a mistake not shooting moose number one?
Yeah.
And I was, starting to be like, gosh dang, maybe I started feeling bad that like, I didn't want you to think I didn't trust you to make that first shot.
Yeah.
And it was like, well, I don't want him thinking I don't think he can make it. I know he can make it. It was more of a matter in the moment of like, should we try to make it?
Yeah.
But then I was like, well, man, maybe I should have let him shoot that shot,
Mm-hmm.
Because I think people might be confused. I didn't let you shoot at 6:20 the first day.
Yeah.
But then I let you shoot at 6:44 the fourth day.
Yeah.
But the conditions, the rest, like you said earlier in your story, you would have never been able to lay in the prone.
Well, the confidence too there is like totally different because
Mm-hmm.
I would have been worried way more about that 620-yard shot than the 644 just because of the rest.
Yeah.
Like I would have been worried the whole time shooting at 620.
Sure.
With that rest.
Yep. And so, it was just absolutely incredible. So, and then the horse wreck that morning.
Yeah.
And then the hour, and it actually, you probably had 15 minutes of shooting light left at that point, maybe?
Yeah.
And as it turns out, that bull was also dead only a few hundred yards from our camp.
Yeah.
And so had that bull walked on any further, it was becoming a real risk that he might see or smell our camp.
Mm-hmm.
And so as he kept walking towards our camp, I kept thinking, man, if we don't get a shot, he's going to keep working that way. He's going to see camp, and then he's going to be gone.
Yeah.
He'll leave the country. So,
well, what I kind of was thinking too was with that whole horse wreck thing, it could have been really easy for Jim to be like, all right, we're just going to rest tonight. And like, cause he was in pain. Like, it's not like he was like, oh, I'm feeling good now. Like I'm all good.
He pissed blood for 2 days.
Yeah. And he could have been easily like, hey, sorry guys, I need to rest tonight. And that moose would have walked into camp. Like we would have been sitting there and he would have walked into camp.
Yeah.
And we would have never shot him.
Yeah, we'd have never known.
No.
That moose would have smelled us or heard us, and we'd have just never known.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would have been just, Jim's a tough guy.
Yeah. So what were your thoughts when we walked up to your moose that night? By that point, it's pitch dark and it's actually raining.
Yeah.
But what were your thoughts when you saw that bull?
I don't even know. I think my mind just went blank. Like, I couldn't even think. I was just like, it was wild.
Yeah.
Like, just insane.
He was huge bull.
Yeah.
Huge body, huge, wild, crazy, weird antlers.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of non-typical type moose. Just crazy.
Yeah.
The guide had never seen anything like it.
Yeah, that's what's crazy. He's been in there for forever, and he's never seen anything like it.
Yeah. So we broke down your bull. Jim's girlfriend came, brought the horses and everything back in, packed that whole moose back to camp on 6-pack horses.
Yeah.
Again, super tough gal. Amazing job that they did. And it was just awesome. And then we ended up hunting for the next 6 days, looking for a bull for myself. We moved camp, camped out on a point and glassed a ton of really cool country. We saw some stone sheep way up on a hill. And as it turns out, then the next day we moved our camp up to that point.
Yeah.
That was up above tree line. So we hiked over there.
Day 6?
Yeah.
Day 6.
Yep. And camped up above tree line. And that's where we got way up high, and we were just glassing tons and tons of country. And we saw cow moose and whatnot, but it was cold.
Windy.
I mean, those next 6 days, what'd you think of those?
Oh, man. It was just, I think, just being up on above tree line, the wind, I don't think it would have been as bad if we were down low, but it was just the wind just cut right through everything and just made everything freezing cold.
Yeah, it was in the high 30s, low 40s, rain, wind. We'd glass for a while, then we'd go get in our tent, warm up a little bit, glass for a while longer.
Well, it was constant 40-mile-an-hour winds.
Yeah. Yeah, just constant blasting on that hill.
Yeah.
You hiked down to Hank's Steakhouse.
Yeah. That was the first day when we hiked over there, right? Yeah.
Pull up to your mic there.
Oh. Yeah.
And you so when we left the moose and had everything packed back to camp, you packed the heart, a backstrap.
I think it was just 2 tenderloins. Heart and 2 tenderloins, right?
No, you had a backstrap in there.
Did I?
Yep.
Okay.
And a tenderloin, I think.
Yeah.
But you packed all that in a game bag in your pack, and then we cooked some of that meat, the first couple nights, and then you packed it all the way over there. But when we got up above tree line, there was no firewood. There was no way to make a camp up there.
Yeah.
So we got up there, we set up camp, and then you dropped off that tree line hill down below our camp. We left the meat hanging in a tree, and you dropped back down into that avalanche chute creek bottom.
Yeah.
And fetched up some wood, built a fire, and you cooked us steaks. Mm-hmm. And then you packed the steaks back up in empty peak meal bags, the foil aluminum or whatever bags that your freeze-drieds come in. You stuffed them full of steaks that you cooked.
Yeah.
And hiked them back up to us.
Yeah.
You could have hiked a little faster.
Yeah, I was just, that was steep. The first time, all I could think about was, man, in about an hour, I have to go back down this and back up it. Because it took us 30 minutes to get to the top the first time.
Oh, at least.
Yeah. And then the second time, it was 16 minutes for me.
You timed it?
Yeah. I had a stopwatch going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was a steep, pretty short, but steep as heck.
Yeah.
Climb up there. And the rest of the time up there, we ate peak meals and, some snacks and stuff, and just did a bunch of glassing. So we were there 2 nights, right?
Yeah. Yeah, 2 nights, and then
the last 2 nights we, or I guess the last night, because we hiked over above tree line and actually hiked over and camped directly above where you shot your bull.
Yeah.
And glassed a ton of country there, and then off in a different direction. We ate. What did you think of the wild blueberries?
Oh my God! After 8 days of Mountain House, those blueberries were so good. Like,
the wild blueberries kind of in the tundra up above tree line. And we were stopping, eating them by the handful.
Yeah.
Just like bears up there.
Yeah, if I was a bear, that's all I'd eat. It's funny, we'd lay on the ground just picking blueberries on the blueberry patches on the side of a steep mountain. Just yeah.
And then we camped there, did a bunch of glassing under a tarp. We were collecting drinking water off of our tarp pretty much that whole trip. We actually made a tarp kind of catch on the ground in a depression, so we could catch a bunch of rainwater in our tarp, and then boil it for food for mountain houses, or peak meals. Yeah, and then also that entire time we were kind of doing that, we were watching your carcass a couple miles away, and there was what was on that?
Grizzly bear, big old grizzly bear. That was cool. I was watching. It was like a dark brown.
He was almost a little younger, so he was kind of dark.
Yeah.
Because the first grizzly bear we saw day one was a giant
grizzly
and
bear.
He was like blonde white.
Yeah, he was huge.
Huge bear.
Belly was dragging on the ground.
Yeah. But this grizzly bear is a little younger, a little darker, young boar. But he buried the entire carcass of that moose. We left all the ribs, all the bones, all the gut pile, all that, and he buried that entire thing that first day underground.
Yeah. And it was crazy. The whole carcass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he sat on that carcass or close for the next few days. We could see him. We were hoping wolves were going to come into it so we could hunt some wolves, but that never happened.
Yeah.
We did hear wolves howl.
Yeah, we had a couple nights, right? Yeah. First night was like day 5. That was cool. Yeah. They were really loud. I think it was one of the last days, right? They were pretty loud.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was neat watching that bear do his thing. It also made you realize if you just came hiking along through that brush,
you would never see him.
You would run into that bear when he's about 5 feet from you.
Yeah, he'd already be charging you.
Yeah. Pretty wild.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, we pack out. I never got an opportunity to stalk anything or shoot anything, but we pack out to the main camp. Horses came and picked us up. We hiked a few miles out, and then we rode the last 4 miles or whatever back to camp.
Yeah.
Went to bed that night, and what happened that night?
We had the antlers sitting down by the lake that we flew out of the next morning. They were sitting down there with our meat, and probably 9 o'clock that next morning, Jim comes in and is like, well, the grizzly bear came in last night. There was a grizzly bear that came in last night and took all the velvet off your antlers. And he felt super bad. And I was just like, I was like, cool. Like, it's going to be an awesome story. Like, people are going to be, I thought it was velvet. And I was like, oh, well, actually, a grizzly bear came into our camp and took it off. And it's going to be an awesome story. Chewed a little bit off the tips of the antlers, but I went walking down there and I looked at it, and it was crazy how white it was. Like, I've never seen antlers this white. Like, it was insane. I wasn't expecting it to be so white, and it was honestly like looked really cool. Like, yeah, like if you shot a bull, like if he was scraping it off, it'd be like super cool.
Yeah, and really, honestly, you said it up there. Like, we should have known better than to leave it down there anyway. But it was only 150 yards from our tent.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's kind of where they generally always have their stuff and never have had problems. That was really the first time they'd had a problem.
Yeah.
But you also, like, we knew that bull was in full velvet, but it was also super tender. It was starting to come off a little bit.
Yeah.
And it had been 6 days since we'd shot it. Like, there was going to be no way to preserve that velvet on those. Like, it was going to, if it's going to be velvet, it's going to be probably fake velvet on them.
Yeah.
So, because he told you and I separately, because he came into the tent where I was at too and was like, felt terrible. was all apologetic. And I had the same reaction. I'm like, dude, it's fine. It's a cool story.
Mm-hmm.
And then once I saw it, I was like,
looks cool.
yeah, it's pretty badass.
Yeah.
And just cleaned it up as white as this beetle bear skull sitting right here.
Yeah.
And so really it's like two moose in one kind of,
Mm-hmm.
and you have the pictures and the reminders of the velvet.
Of both. Yeah.
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 So, that's just what happens when you're out in the wild.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well,
But-
I mean, he could if we moved it closer, he could have easily came in and
Ate
licked
you.
him off. Yeah, licked him off right in front of the tent.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
So anyway, we flew out, drove home, long drive home.
Yeah.
Just what do you think in general of the entire trip? Was it worth missing a couple football games?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Because only missed 1, 2, and came back, and everyone was asked me how it was. It's like the experience was awesome. Just, yeah. Met some super cool people,
Mm-hmm.
great people. Couldn't have had better guides. Like, everyone there was great.
Mm-hmm.
Jim, Juan, and Easton, they were tough as nails. Like,
Mm-hmm.
they were awesome.
So you're glad you went?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was super fun.
Gonna mount it?
Yep. Yeah, it's going to hang up. You can come see it in the MKC shop, the new one, a couple years.
The new building at the end of next year?
Yep.
Well, we figured we'll hang it in the new MKC building until you are a respectable adult and have a
with
house.
Yeah.
When you head off to college, I'm not going to trust you with a mount.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't either. So,
Your
I
friends will
wouldn't
be
want it
running
to-
down the street with it.
yeah. Steal it out of my apartment or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
well, yeah, it's pretty cool. It's one of my favorite things is hunting with you or the girls, your
Mm-hmm.
sisters. It's an absolute blast. I'm glad you went.
Yeah, me too. It was really fun.
Yeah, we'll have to hunt some more.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, just starting. So,
Yep.
yeah.
All right, buddy.
It's going to be awesome.
Well, thanks for coming on and telling your story.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Where do people find you?
Hank Mark Smith, Instagram. That's my username, Hank Mark Smith. And yeah.
What are your goals someday? What are you going to be? What are you going to do?
The goal right now is to, play sports, make it to college, do something like that. But I don't know. I don't have a clue past that. So
Don't have a clue.
right now it's football or basketball.
You're 16. You need a life. You need to know what your whole life is going to be right now.
Yeah. I still got 20 years. I got 20 years. I mean, you figured your life out about 40. So,
So you got time.
yeah.
And ladies, he's single.
Oh God. Here we go. Let's end it now.
All right. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah.